Tony Hsieh.
So wanted to do a quick survey for, how many of you have actually bought from Zappos?
Yes.
Wow, well thank you. It's interesting because normally when I do the survey you guys are from Silicon Valley, but for most random people I meet, I ask if they bought from Zappos, and usually the ratio is about 2-to-1 women to men. And a lot of the men I ask say that they themselves haven't personally bought from us, but their wives or significant others have. And I was giving a tour at our offices for Zappos. We're actually located in Las Vegas. We give tours to the public Monday through Thursday. So next time you're in Las Vegas, would definitely recommend you come on a tour. It's a lot of fun. We'll actually pick you up in a Zappos shuttle, give you the tour, and then drop you off at your hotel afterwards. And so we were giving one of these tours, and I happened to be personally giving the tour to an executive from one of the major record labels. And I asked him the same question, had he bought from us before? And he said, no, but he thinks his wife has, because these white boxes would show up at the doorstep, but then they disappear, and he had no idea if they were being returned, kept, exchanged, or what was going on. And any time he asked his wife what was going on, she refused to answer him. So we're going on this tour, and on the ground floor is our merchandising department, and you get to see all the buyers and the brands they work with. And then we go upstairs to our customer loyalty team, which is our name for our call center. And he sat down next to one of our reps and forced her to pull up his wife's account. And he discovered she had actually spent over $62,000 in his lifetime. So hopefully we're not instrumental to any divorce proceedings. So before getting to Zappos, I want to talk about what led me to Zappos. And the story actually begins with pizza. In college, I was running a pizza business with my college roommate, and we were in charge of everything. We were investing in ovens and hiring workers, deciding what the menu was, dealing with suppliers, and occasionally I was actually making the pizzas myself. And this guy named Alfred, who is actually the CFO and COO of Zappos today, he would stop by every night and buy a large pepperoni pizza from me. And this wasn't actually that weird because we all knew he could eat a lot. He even had, we would go out late night at Chinese restaurants and there'd be 10 of us, and he would literally finish everyone's leftovers. It was crazy. And so we had nicknames for him like Monster or Human Trash Compactor. And so sometimes he would, so it wasn't that weird he was buying a large pizza, but then sometimes he would come back a few hours later and buy another large pepperoni pizza, and I was just thinking, wow, this boy can really eat. Well, I found out several years later, he was actually taking the pizzas upstairs and selling them off by the slice. So that's why he's our CFO and COO today at Zappos. So after the pizza business, the same roommate I was running the pizza business with, he and I got together and formed a company called Link Exchange. This was back in '96, and we grew that to 100 or so people and ended up selling the company to Microsoft in 1998. But what a lot of people don't know is the reason why we ended up selling the company, and it's because the company culture just went completely downhill. And I remember, it got to the point where I myself dreaded getting out of bed in the morning to go to the office, and that was kind of a weird feeling because this was a company I co-founded, and if I myself felt that way, wondered how all the other employees felt. We hired all the right people in terms of skill sets and experiences, but we didn't know any better to pay attention to company culture. And that was probably, that was a really tough lesson to learn. So after selling the company to Microsoft, Alfred and I got together and formed an investment company. And we invested in about 100 or so different internet companies. And we were actually based out at the AMC 1000 Van Ness movie theaters here in San Francisco. And Alfred and I lived on the 7th floor. And actually my parents ran the restaurant downstairs. It was called Venture Frog's Restaurant. And we had a movie theater there. And there was, at the time, there was a gym there, Crunch. And then the first level, part of the first level and also part of the second floor, we actually ran an incubator, and Zappos was one of those companies that we invested in and eventually wound up in the incubator. Over the course of a year, though, I realized that for me, investing was actually pretty boring. I didn't really enjoy being on the sidelines. I really missed being part of building something. And so basically within a year or so, I ended up joining Zappos full time, and I've been with Zappos ever since. Some of you probably heard last July we announced Amazon was acquiring Zappos. The deal actually closed in November, but this acquisition is actually very different from most acquisitions that Amazon has done, or even most acquisitions that any company has done. Because most acquisitions, at least at Amazon, what they do is they acquire the company and then integrate it into Amazon. But for us, when we talked to Amazon, before we even started the conversation of whether this was something we wanted to pursue, we told them actually the prerequisite for even beginning conversations is that we want to remain independent. We want to continue growing the Zappos brand our way and continue growing the Zappos culture, which is different from the Amazon culture, and continue running our business our way. And so they agreed to that, and the deal closed November 1st, and so basically it's as if we swapped out our board of directors for a new one. So we fly up to Seattle once a quarter and have the equivalent of a board of directors meeting, and it's been great. They've stayed true to their word and left us independent. So most people, when they hear about Zappos, they think of us as an online shoe retailer because that's how we started. Really just our goal in the beginning was let's just have the biggest selection of shoes on the internet. Well, internally, we think of ourselves pretty differently. We're actually hoping 10 years from now, people won't even realize we started out selling shoes online. In fact, today we sell a lot more than shoes. We sell clothing, beauty products, even kitchenware and housewares. And internally, we have a saying that we're a service company that just happens to sell shoes. And we're hoping not only will they not realize 10 years from now that we started out selling shoes online, but it doesn't even have to be limited to just shoes. We've had customers email us and ask us if we could please start an airline or run the IRS. And we're not going to do either of those things this year, but 20 or 30 years from now, I wouldn't rule out a Zappos Airlines that's just about the very best service and very best customer experience. So one brand we look to for inspiration sometimes is Virgin, because they're in a whole bunch of different businesses. They're in music and airlines and so on. The difference is the Virgin brand is more about being hip and cool, whereas we just want to be about the very best customer service. So our philosophy about marketing is actually pretty different from most other companies. Our philosophy is let's take most of the money that we would have spent on paid advertising or paid marketing, instead invest it into the customer experience and let the customers do the marketing for us through word of mouth. And on any given day, about 75% of our orders are from repeat customers. And over the years, we've grown from basically no sales in 1999 to in 2008, and we hit $1 billion in gross merchandise sales, and we continue to grow. Actually, Q1, in terms of year-over-year growth, we actually grew almost 50% quarter over quarter. So we're pretty excited about that. And the number one driver of this growth has been through repeat customers and word of mouth. So these are some of the questions that we ask ourselves when we think about what it means to deliver great customer service. What do customers expect? And then what do they actually experience? And we think a lot about the emotions that customers feel. And how do we create stories and memories for our customers? So in terms of what is customer service, it begins with what you see on our website when you come visit. It's free shipping both ways. A lot of customers will try on 10 different pairs of shoes, try them on in the comfort of their living room with 10 different outfits, and then just ship back the ones that they don't like or they're not happy with. We have a 365-day return policy for anyone, I guess, people that have trouble committing or making up their minds. And our 1-800 number actually we take a very different approach in terms of customer service, in terms of just thinking about contact. The customer service is an expense or is it an investment? So most websites, it's very hard to find contact information. It's usually buried 5 links deep, and it's an email address that you can only email once and you can't reply to if you get a response back. Well, we take the exact opposite approach because we actually want to talk to our customers. We put our 1-800 number at the top of every single page of our website. And it's funny because sometimes I'll be speaking at a branding or marketing conference, and there's a lot of discussion of consumers being bombarded with thousands and thousands of marketing messages every day. How do you get your brand to stand out? How do you get your message to stand out? And as kind of low-tech and unsexy as it may sound, the telephone is actually one of the best branding devices out there because you have the consumer's undivided attention for 5 to 10 minutes. And if you get the interaction right, we found that customers remember that for a very long time and tell their friends and family about it. So for us, customer service isn't this thing that isn't this department, or call center isn't this department where we're trying to minimize expenses. Instead, what we're trying to do is really think about it from a branding lens. What can we do with that every time a customer calls so that we build our brand one phone call at a time to be about the very best customer service. And because of that, we run our call center very differently from most call centers. Most call centers have scripts. We don't have scripts. Most call centers try to upsell to try to pay for that cost, and we don't upsell. And most call centers have this concept called average handle time, which is all about efficiency. How many customers can each rep talk to in a day, which translates into how quickly can you get the customer off the phone. And for us, we don't think that's great customer service. In fact, because we don't measure call times, and we don't even, every rep is trained so that if a competitor is looking for, or if a customer is looking for a shoe that, let's say, we're out of stock in their particular size, everyone's trained to look on at least 3 competitor websites. If they find the shoe on a competitor website in stock, to actually direct the customer to that competitor. And obviously we lose that transaction, but we're not trying to maximize every single transaction. We're trying to build a lifelong relationship with our customers. And back to the average handle time thing, in terms of call times, we don't measure that in terms of the individual reps either. Actually, I just heard that our longest phone call was almost 6 hours long. So I'm not sure how the bathroom situation worked for that one, but customers call us for all sorts of different reasons, and actually most of our phone calls don't result in sales. And you may think it's weird for an internet company to focus so much on the telephone when only 5% of our orders actually come from the telephone. But what we found is that on average, every customer calls us at least once sometime during their lifetime. And it's usually not to buy a pair of shoes or to buy anything. Maybe it's their first time going through the returns process and they just want a little help stepping through that. Or maybe they have a wedding this weekend to go to and they just want some fashion advice. And then I think we have some customers that call us probably because I think they're just lonely and just want someone to talk to. We're happy to do that as well. So, I talk about all this stuff in terms of customer service, but customer service is actually not our number one priority. Our company culture is. And our whole belief is that if we get the culture right, then most of the other stuff like delivering great customer service or building a long-term enduring brand will just happen naturally on its own. So here are some of the things that we do for culture, and it actually starts with the hiring. Everyone that's hired, it doesn't matter what position, you can be an accountant, software developer, we do 2 sets of interviews. The hiring manager and his or her team will interview for the standard, looking for fit within the team, relevant experience, technical ability, and so on. But then our HR department does a separate set of interviews purely for culture fit. And they have to pass both in order to be hired. So we've actually passed on a lot of really smart, talented people that we know can make an immediate impact on our top or bottom line. But if they're not a culture fit, we won't hire them. And the reverse is true too. We will fire people, even if they're doing their specific job function perfectly fine, if they're bad for the culture. And our performance reviews are 50% based on whether you're living or inspiring the culture in others. The other thing we do is everyone that's hired into our headquarters in Las Vegas goes through this 5-week training program. One of the weeks is you go to Kentucky, which is where our warehouse is, and you do all the different warehouse functions, picking, packing, shipping, receiving, and so on. But when you first start, it's a 4-week training program, and it's the exact same training program for everyone, whether you're an accountant, software developer, or call center rep. And we go over company history, the importance of company culture, our philosophy about customer service, and then you're actually on the phone for 2 weeks taking calls from customers. And the reason we do that is because if we're serious about building our brand to be about the very best customer service, then customer service shouldn't just be a department. It should be the entire company. And the other great thing about it is during our busy Q4 holiday season, people from all the different departments can and do hop on the phones to help with the load. The other thing we do during the training program is during the first week, at the end of the first week, we make an offer to everyone in the new hire class. And the offer is this: we will pay you for the time you've already spent training, plus a bonus of $2,000 to quit and leave the company right now. And that's actually a standing offer until the end of the training program. Then we actually just extended it a couple months after that. And the original reason for doing it was because, if someone wasn't really committed to the company, didn't really feel like this was the right culture for them, we didn't want them there just to get a paycheck. And in Las Vegas, starting pay for a call center rep is $11 an hour. There's plenty of other call centers in Vegas, so $2,000 is a pretty significant amount of money. Well, in 2007, when we started this, about 3% of people took the offer. 2008, 1% of people took the offer. I don't think anyone took it in 2009. And so the offer started out at $100, and we actually keep upping the offer because we feel like not enough people are taking the offer. The original thought was, okay, we can use this to weed out the people that, 6 months down the line, we're going to either be fired or we're going to leave on their own anyways because they weren't as committed to the company. But something we didn't expect actually ended up being the biggest benefit for this. And the biggest benefit actually came from the people that didn't accept the offer. Because they still had to go home and think, over the weekend, talk to their friends and family and ask themselves, is this a company that I really believe in? Do I believe in the long-term vision of this company? Is this a company whose core values and culture I want to be a part of? And after thinking about it over the weekend and deciding they're going to walk away from an easy $2,000, what we found was that on Monday, they were that much more committed and engaged and passionate. And that is and continues to be by far the biggest benefit from that. We also have a culture book, and this is different from the book that you guys have, and it's something we put out once a year, and we ask all our employees to write a few paragraphs about what the Zappos culture means to them. And except for typos, it's unedited. So it includes the good and the bad. It's kind of like when you go to Amazon and you see the customer reviews of products. These are essentially employee reviews of the company. And I'll actually give my contact information later on in this, and happy to send everyone here a free culture book if you want one. And the other thing is we're very active on Twitter. We teach Twitter to new employees during that new hire training, and then it's up to them afterwards whether they want to use it or not, continue using it or not. And we actually have about 500 employees that are on Twitter. And if you go to twitter.zappos.com, you can click the link to see the 500 employees, and then there's a link there where we aggregate the tweets of all our different employees that are on Twitter. And you can see the conversation there. It's very rarely about work. It's about what they did this weekend, or they're hungry, or whatever. And we've really found it's a great way to build culture because you get to know each other in a different context. You might find out through Twitter that the person that's 3 rows down from you, who you don't get to regularly talk to when hiking, and if you're also a hiker, then you now have something to talk about, and maybe even go hiking together. So in terms of how we're thinking of the Zappos brand, at least over the next several years, is we're really thinking of it in terms of what we call the 3 C's: clothing, customer service, and company culture. And we really think of this as kind of the life cycle of the customer. So customers that have never heard of Zappos, don't even know, what we do or who we are, we want to make sure that they understand that we have a great selection of clothing and shoes and a whole bunch of other product categories. Once they know that we have a great selection, then we want them to know that we're all about delivering the very best customer service. And that's not something that we tell them so much as they experience when they call our call center. Or the other thing we do is, for most of our loyal repeat customers, we will do surprise upgrades to overnight shipping. And we run our warehouse 24/7, which actually is not the most efficient way to run a warehouse. The most efficient way to run a warehouse is to let the orders pile up, so when the picker's walking around the warehouse, there's higher picking density and they don't need to walk as far. But we're not trying to maximize for warehouse efficiency. We're trying to maximize for the customer experience. And because we do those surprise upgrades, and because our warehouse is 15 minutes away from the UPS hub in Louisville, Kentucky, and because of all of those things combined, a lot of customers actually order as late as midnight Eastern, and the shoes show up on their doorstep 8 hours later. And that creates this whole wow effect, and they tell their friends and family about this. And people ask us, isn't that expensive? How can you afford to do free shipping both ways? And how can you afford to do surprise upgrades to overnight shipping? And the answer is yes, it's very expensive, but it goes back to we'd much rather spend our, what would have been the paid marketing or paid advertising dollars there instead of spending it on the paid advertising and marketing that most companies normally do. And so, and then once customers realize that, okay, we're all about really taking care of the customer, delivering the very best customer service, then we want them to know about our culture and our core values, because that's really the platform that makes everything possible. So we've actually had customers email us and describe that when they get that perfect outfit or perfect pair of shoes, that Zappos is happiness in a box. So whether it's the happiness that customers feel when they get that perfect outfit or perfect pair of shoes, or the happiness that customers feel when they somehow get that surprise upgrade to overnight shipping or talk to our customer service reps, or the happiness that employees feel by being part of a culture where the company's core values match their own personal values. The thing that kind of ties all of these things together is that Zappos is really just about delivering happiness, whether it's to customers or employees, and we apply that same philosophy to our vendors as well. So I wanted to talk about two books that we really believe in a lot at Zappos, and we actually make these, we actually have this thing called the Zappos Library in our reception area, and it's actually not a standard lending library, it's actually a giving library. And so we have tons and tons of books, books like Good to Great and Tribal Leadership that we give away to employees and to visitors. Anyone that comes for a tour, we say, here are some books we recommend, and take whatever you think you can read. But these are two books that we actually think we really believe in the things that they say. And in fact, we even teach classes on these two books for our employees. And by the way, Tribal Leadership, we partnered with the authors on, and the audio version is available for download for free from the Zappos website. So what I really liked about these two books was that they looked at, they did research and examined what separated the great companies in terms of long-term financial performance from just the good ones. And what they found through their research was that there were two important ingredients that the great companies had that the good ones and mediocre ones generally didn't have. And the first ingredient was that the great companies all had strong cultures. And so for us at Zappos, we formalized the definition of our culture into 10 core values. Now, a lot of companies they might call them core values or guiding principles or so on, but the problem is at most large corporations, they're very lofty sounding and they kind of read like a press release and that the marketing department put out, and maybe you learn about it on day one of orientation, but then it just becomes this meaningless plaque on the lobby wall. Well, we wanted to come up with core values that were committable. And by committable, meaning we're willing to hire or fire people based on whether they're living up to those core values, regardless of their actual job performance. And when you use that as the criteria, it's actually a pretty hard list to come up with. And we spent a year going back and forth on this. So these are our core values at Zappos. And I'll make this presentation available so you don't need to copy any of that. So we actually have interview questions for each and every one of these core values. The one that probably trips us up the most is be humble, because there's a lot of really smart, talented people out there that are also really egotistical. And when, this one is not, the be humble one, it's not really something you can ask an interview question for. You don't say like, oh, are you humble? Or, and he says, yes, I'm the most humble person ever. But really, one of the ways we actually, this is actually one of those things where you can, I think people have a pretty good intuition of, but one of the ways we test for this is, just like we pick up visitors from the airport, a lot of our candidates fly in from other states, and we'll pick them up from the airport in the Zappos shuttle. They go in, get a tour, and then start their interviews. Well, what they don't know is the interviews actually start way before the first person that they meet in the office. The interview starts with the shuttle drive. And afterwards, the recruiter will go back, talk to the shuttle driver, and ask them how they were treated and so on. And if the shuttle driver says they weren't treated well, like that's it. It's very obvious we won't hire them. There isn't any debate about it. Whereas I think at most companies, what would happen is, if you find someone that's really smart and talented, but also really egotistical, then the conversation afterwards might be, well, this person might rub you the wrong way and annoy you a lot of times, but he's going to add a lot of value to the company, so we should hire him. And that one hire may or may not necessarily bring the company culture downhill, but if you keep making compromises like that over and over and over again, I think that's why most large companies don't have great company cultures. So I'll give some examples of other interview questions we have. Number 3, create fun and a little weirdness. So one of our questions for this core value is actually, on a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you? And if you answer a 1, you're probably a little bit too straight-laced for the Zappos culture. If you answer a 10, you might be too psychotic or something for us. But it's not so much the number that matters to us, because our belief is that everyone's a little weird somehow. It's really more just a fun way of saying that we really recognize and celebrate each person's individuality, and we want their true personalities to shine in the workplace, and we want their creativity to come out. And that's true whether it's interacting with each other as coworkers or interacting with customers over the phone. So as an example, if you call, let's say you're a customer and you call and you get a rep that loves telling jokes, and that's what the rep will do. We want them to do what fits their personality and the customer's personality, and the rep might spend the whole time making you laugh with the different jokes, and that's great. And all we care about is if afterwards, when you hang up, like you just think, wow, that was the best customer experience ever. And then you might call again a second time, get another rep who's not a joke teller, but maybe that rep hears, say, your dog barking in the background. And if that rep also owns a dog, then the rep can talk to you, and you guys can bond over dogness or whatever dog owners bond over. And so that's one example. And for number 4, be adventurous, creative, and open-minded. One of our questions is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how lucky are you in life? 1 is, I don't know why bad things always seem to happen to me. 10 is, I don't know why good things always seem to happen to me. Well, we don't want to hire the 1s because they're bad luck, and we don't want bad luck to join Zappos. But this was actually inspired by a research study that I'd read about several years ago, where they actually asked that exact same question to a random group of people, and they got answers all over the board, some 1s, some 10s, a bunch in between. And then afterwards, they asked them to do a task. And the task was to go through a newspaper and count the number of photos that were in that newspaper. But what the participants didn't know was that it was actually a fake newspaper. And sprinkled throughout the newspaper were these headlines that would say things like, if you're reading this right now, you can stop, the answer's 37, plus tell the researcher you read this and collect an extra $100. Well, what they found was that the people that consider themselves unlucky in life generally never noticed the headlines. They just went through the task at hand and eventually got the right answer. But the people that consider themselves lucky in life generally stopped early and made an extra $100. So the takeaway isn't so much that people are inherently lucky or unlucky, but that luck is really more about looking for opportunities beyond just how the situation or task presents itself. And that's why we asked that question for core value number 4.